occurred. We had a power outage here in the building, and now we just got everything powered up again and ready to go. We hope everybody can hear us okay. At this point, we're now going to introduce the panel that's here to talk to you and answer your questions. And we'll have the panelists introduce themselves right now. The first person we'll have introduce themselves is Mr. Jacobson.
Hello, my name is Zane Jacobson. I'm the IB counselor in the International Baccalaureate program, and also a parent of students who had gone through the IB program and currently are in the IB program. So hopefully I can help out with both those scenarios. Thank you.
Mr. Dan Holroyd.
Hello, my name is Dan Holroyd, and I'm the band director here at East High School, and I'm also the music department head.
Mrs. Heather Terrell.
Hi, I'm Heather Terrell. I am a math teacher here at East, and one of the courses that I teach is AP Calculus BC.
Mr. Jonathan Lever.
Hi, I'm John Lever. I'm the Baccalaureate Program Coordinator. I also have one student who's starting his senior year in the IB program, and we'll also have a freshman in the program. So hopefully, as Mr. Jacobson said, can help out with some of those scenarios as well.
Mr. Marcus Viney.
Hello, I'm Marcus Viney, the head speech and debate coach here. I'm also an English teacher, so I can speak to some activities and English.
And Mrs. Ann Zumo.
Hi, I'm Ann Zumo, and I'm in the sciences for the IB program.
I want to thank all the panelists for being here this evening, and want to let everybody know that they're willing to answer any questions you might have about overall education in our building and curriculum as we move forward. As you know, the 4x4 schedule is a schedule that is being considered by our school board. So any questions you would have on that, they would be glad to answer pertaining to that schedule as well. Again, we're sorry for the issues we had earlier with the power outage. Mrs. Bartlett and I were just talking, ever since the shutdown last year, we had no issues with Teams or with Zoom. So we were probably due. But anyhow, we want to move forward now. And we also had 20 questions that have already been received and that we've already documented. And Mr. Kirchner is going to read those questions. And then we'll let the panel answer those questions right now. And then when we're done with those questions, we'll let you raise your hand if you have more questions when we move forward throughout this evening. Mr. Kirchner.
First question is about offsite electives and work experience. What about clinicals at the hospitals? Will this still happen?
The clinicals at the hospitals, if our kids are allowed to go in the hospitals and work in the hospitals and do their clinicals, I'm talking to Ms. Quick. She said she was going to make sure that that process would move forward. But again, it comes down to if our local community health partners can allow our students into their hospitals. But otherwise, if they can, yes.
The next question is related to homework. If my granddaughter has, for instance, math and chemistry, both IB classes the first semester, what is the homework situation going to look like? Usually she would have math on A days and chemistry on B days, so homework for these hard classes would be staggered. Now she will have both classes on the same day every day if they go to the 4x4 schedule.
So this is Mr. Lever, or John Lever. One of the couple of things here, one thing I'd like to speak to is that the IB teachers in general really do try to work together with respect to assigning homework and making sure that they're not overloading homework. Granted, there are times during the year when that, things overlap, but for the most part, teachers really work hard to try not to overload the students anyway. One of the things that we started doing during the shutdown was using a common calendar for the IB teachers so that they could see when homework was being assigned for different classes. And something that as the program coordinator, I'd like to see us continue so that teachers would be able to see, yeah, you know, chemistry has got a big exam coming up on this day. Maybe we can alter things a little bit with respect to, you know, math or something to that effect. But really this is going to be, I think, about collaboration among the teachers that occurs anyway. So while there might be some days where, you know, students are going to have some homework, there are going to be other days where teachers have been able to stagger some of that as well.
This is Ann Zumo. I would echo what Mr. Lever just said, and also realize that during a normal year, there's an ebb and flow to the IB curriculum, so that students will be more concentrated, say, on sciences or math at some point, and then that kind of is relieved, and then they move into history and English. This will probably just be mimicked within the semester itself. And I think that having the students every day will allow for some in-classroom preparation and minimize some of that homework, and realize that they're also going to be having 4 classes versus 8. So that is a plus. And in a normal system, they may have had chemistry and math on the same day anyway. So really it's just going to be students working with the teachers and communicating with them.
Next question is related to retention. With the 4x4 schedule, some students will have to take their math classes second semester. How are you expecting them to retain all of the information from last year? What will the schools do to prevent that?
This is Heather Terrell. I want to start off first by saying I believe that in-person instruction is the best for the vast majority of our students, and I believe the 4x4 schedule is going to keep us in school longer. Now, I do know that this schedule has some drawbacks, and gaps between classes is definitely one of them that we need to consider. But we've designed our math course so we can spend more time and focus on the skills that are needed for the next class. So hopefully these essential skills are the ones that they remember from their previous math course, since we spent more time on them, and really we want them to remember them for years and years to come. But let's say that they don't remember. Math teachers are used to handling retention problems. You know, we're used to seeing the summer slide. We're used to having that geometry gap year between Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. So most of the math teachers begin a lesson with some sort of warm-up or activity that is meant to activate, you know, that background knowledge they would have learned in a previous math course. So for example, I teach polynomial long division. Now students typically haven't seen long division since 5th or 6th grade. So I start off that lesson by doing an example with just numbers, a typical problem you would have seen in 5th grade. The students talk about it. We talk about it as a group. What do you remember? What don't you remember? And it's really to you know, help those students who don't really remember, who just need a little nudge to be like, oh yeah, I know what that is. But it never fails whenever I teach that lesson. I always have a student pull me aside and say, Ms. Terrell, I don't think I actually learned long division. I don't know what's going on. I'm really confused. And that would be, you know, when I'd say, let's set up a time to get together one-on-one so that we can talk through this, work on this, and make sure that you have the skills. And I know every single one of my math teachers is willing to work with students one-on-one so that if they feel like they have lost some of those skills, to make sure that they're ready to move on. We also plan on incorporating more review during the year to help students. And we also know in future years, you know, exactly what's happening this year. So if we need to do that in the future, do more review, we definitely will. How can we try to prevent this from happening? I know in previous parent meetings, it was suggested that students could take their math class first semester and then go ahead and take the next class, the next math class second semester, and you can definitely do that. That would help you avoid the gap. if you're going into a math field, you can get more math credits. Students can leave here with something like 18 college level math credits from LCCC. Or if they choose to double up on math this year, that may mean that it opens up another period for elective their junior or senior year. I know that some math teachers are thinking about sending out some problem sets to their students when they don't have them, whether it's first semester or second semester, to keep them kind of fresh on the math material. We've talked about using extended day. There's always a math teacher staffing extended day, and so a student could walk in and say, this is the class I've been in, this is the class I'm going to, and that teacher can be like, these are the essential skills, these are the things we need to make sure that you know and keep fresh, and can work on that in extended day. We offer ACT, so for juniors, we have the ACT prep after school, and that hits Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2. So just studying for the ACT, which is a test that they have to take in their junior year anyways, it'll keep them fresh on those math skills. And we were brainstorming earlier, it may seem a little weird, but if you're planning on being a TA, why don't you TA for a math teacher? And then you're in the classroom hearing math, can kind of look up in between, doing your homework or doing something for the teacher. So, as we're going into this, and if we're for sure going forward with 4x4, I know the math department is going to get together and brainstorm lots of ideas to make sure that these kids are successful. Thanks.
The next question is related to the immersion aspect of a 4x4 schedule. How are schools expecting AP students to learn all of the information needed for their AP tests in such a short amount of time?
Again, sorry, Heather.
Oh, you can, I'll take a break, Anne, you can go.
I've also had students test in the AP program through the IB program. And I would say that it's not such a short amount of time. It's the same amount of time in the course. It's just over a shorter period of time. So the expectations would be to have students learning through the continuum. And as Mrs. Terrell said, there would be multiple opportunities after the students are done with that semester to continue on reviewing and applying that information and that content.
I know that one thing that we've talked about with a lot of the math teachers is moving our AP classes to first semester. I did the numbers. First semester we'll have 89 contact days, assuming that we're going to start on August 24th. Whereas second semester we'll only have 69 instruction days before the AP exams. So I know that several of the AP teachers would really like to get that 30 hours more worth of instruction time by having it first semester. And then most of our teachers have review nights in the spring. That's nothing new for us. It's nothing for our students. And so that would be a way for us to kind of make sure that they're studying and keeping fresh on all the things that they would need to do for the AP exam. But I also think that just having it in a short amount of time, whenever I've taught classes every day, whether it's a block every day or if it's a short class every day, for some reason it just seems like we can get so much further and we can do so many things, and we would be able to learn the material deeper than maybe we could have when we just had our rolling block schedule.
The next question really relates to schedule constraints and conflicts. We would like to know how her schedule will be accommodated with 4 AP classes: band, jazz band, orchestra, and tutorial. Having orchestra or band for only 4 months out of a year is not enough when you plan to use music as a scholarship opportunity.
Well, one of the things that we have talked about in the music department, especially for our students that are in band and orchestra or band and choir, is we're thinking that we could probably do a kind of a shared type thing with some of those students where they would come to band one period, and then the next day they would go to orchestra, and we would do that for the entire year. That way the students aren't giving up another elective, and they would earn half a credit first semester and the other half the second semester. The other thing that we are doing as a music department is we're going to try to offer our core music classes, band, orchestra, and choir, all year long if we were to do the 4x4 schedule. And then we would ask the students to try to take band, orchestra, choir all year long, or maybe do one of the sharing opportunities. Some of our other specialty classes, in particular jazz band, as well as maybe our singers group, will maybe take place during a 0 hour, or maybe even as an evening class as the year progresses. So that's what we're looking at to help accommodate students. Another option would also be using a independent study type situation if there was a kid who just couldn't get into the band or orchestra choir class. But we want to try to keep all of those kids still involved in our music department as much as we possibly can. So we're going to be as flexible as we need to be to make that happen.
Next up.
And I'll echo what Mr. Holroyd was saying, that as we look at trying to move AP classes around, we want to keep those kids in those classes. So we're going to do our best to be as flexible as possible and pick the option that keeps the kids in the class.
Thank you. The next question is related to concerts and lettering. How will the 4x4 system affect orchestra concerts and lettering?
Well, as far as concerts go, we are still have all of our same concerts that we would normally have scheduled during the course of the year. This year, our first concerts, maybe the ones in October and even December, it's very possible that they could be streaming concerts. As far as lettering and that kind of thing with some of our electives that are also activities like band, orchestra, choir, speech and debate, I'm sure we'll have to adjust our requirements a little bit on the 4x4 schedule, but that is something that all of the teachers are aware of and are of course willing to work with students so that they can still receive their letter depending on what time of year they're in the group. And so we're going to try to work with kids the best we can to continue to make that happen. And we're really hopeful that we will get to have in-person concerts at some point in time.
We've received several questions about dual and concurrent enrollment classes. And here's an example. Calculus BC is supposed to have 2 college courses as concurrent enrollment. How will this be accommodated?
You will still earn college credit for Calc BC for both Calc 1 and Calc 2. We're still going to meet for the same amount of time as we would in a normal year. It's just going to be all in first semester instead of over the whole year. So first quarter will be Calc 1, second quarter will be Calc 2. You'll earn the same concurrent enrollment credits as you would in a normal year.
And then to answer the dual enrollment, that is not changed. That will still be offered at the college, and that will still be an option for students, whether we do the 4x4 or the traditional rolling block.
IB exams are also an area of concern. For the seniors in IB classes this fall that are on A days, their exams are in May, which is 3 months after the class is over. This will make test preparation very difficult. What will be put in place to resolve this? As you all know, the stakes are very high for these kids, and they and their teachers have made many sacrifices to get to this point.
So the first thing, should we make the shift to the 4x4 schedule, is not necessarily a guarantee that every IB class will be on A days. Some might be, some might still end up being on B days. However, for those IB classes that are in the first semester, should we do the 4x4 schedule? The teachers, generally speaking, in the spring have run, as Ms. Terrell said before, for the AP, and this is also true for IB, teachers have run review sessions throughout the spring, which is, I was talking to Ms. Zumo earlier, and that's something that's going to continue. The other piece of that too, and I think Ms. Zumo said this earlier, we really try to teach to make sure the students hang on to the material. Now, granted, when they go into the exam, it does, you know, the stress level is up just a little bit, but I think that's where those review sessions come in also prior to that spring session.
This is Mrs. Zumo, and I would echo what Mr. Lieber said. I always say that we teach to remember and not regurgitate. The processes, especially for the sciences, I can speak to that we will still have 0 hours. So I plan on shifting the majority of my content that is lab heavy to this fall semester, and then shifting some of the content that isn't so lab involved to the B days, which would be 0 hours, sorry, not B days, but 0 hours second semester. And also the internal assessments are a big component to the exams. And I know that we have in the past worked between contents and tried to stagger the due dates and things that those will be due and not put such a heavy load on the students. So I'm sure that that will continue as well. Review nights, tutorials, lots of different things that we have to offer the students. You just need to kind of follow the lead by the student and know that, or sorry, follow the lead by the teacher and know that the teachers will have your back and will get you there.
A related concern is AP tests. I worry about my child having to give up an elective to take the AP tutorial class to keep the information clear and strong. Is there any way that the tutorials may change or could be changed to be after or before school in T-Bird time or online? I don't feel like students who are pushing themselves to take more difficult courses should be punished by giving up electives to prepare for the AP tests.
I know that in the math department, we've talked about this of using extended day where the AP teacher, the IB teacher would be in there with the purpose of meeting with their students second semester to make sure that they are keeping fresh, having, you know, good preparation for the exams. And so that is definitely an option because we realize that students want to take electives. They don't necessarily have room in their schedule. So that's an option. And I know that College Board, especially last spring, they were very cognizant that several teachers in schools were not offering instruction while they were closed down for COVID. And so they actually had their master teachers in every single subject area create review sessions online, and they're going to still offer those. So that would be another option. You know, a student could still review and prepare for the AP exam with a master teacher, oftentimes one of the AP graders. So they have a lot of expertise, even though it might not be their actual teacher here at East. And I know that all of us would give up, you know, EHS time if a student walked in and wanted to do some review. So I think there are lots of options outside of tutorial if we just can't make it work.
She got that on.
Next is concerns about reading courses. My daughter is currently on an IEP and is required to take reading as an elective. This is usually a year-long class. How will this class be handled with a 4x4 schedule? Will she have to drop another elective in order to take reading for the entire year, which would mean reading would count for 2 of her 4 electives? Thank you.
As stated on some of the other classes, it would be the same for reading. Reading, the same amount of time would be given for that reading class, even though it's only 1 semester. And as far as would they have to take it again, that really is an individual decision because we would look at the progress and where they are at currently in the reading class. But the short answer is no, they would not have to take it all year because like I said before, the amount of time they were in the reading class would be the same. So the instruction, the number of hours of instruction will be the same as what we had asked over a full year. But like the other classes, the benefit of having it every day, there should be some good benefits from that.
Next up is study skills. How will the 4x4 schedule work with students on IEPs who need a study skills, but this class is not an A-day class?
So when we look at study skills, that class has been designed for two purposes. One is what it says is to provide skills to help students with studying and organization and doing those types of things to be successful at school. And the other part of that was to support their academics. So just going from 8 to 4 classes, I think that'll be a great benefit for a lot of these students, a lot less to focus on. Another thing that was kind of running through my mind and the department chair and I'll work on is maybe moving study skills for freshmen and sophomores to that first semester. But we also could put any student that needs it in there. And again, those are individual, as the IEP suggests. It's an individual education plan. So those decisions would be made on individual basis as determining what is determined by student need.
Zero hour. How will 0 hour classes be handled?
0 hour classes would start at 7 a.m. in the morning and go to 7:40. And those classes would meet every morning. And so therefore students would have a chance to earn a half a credit per semester. So the 0 hour, which we've had before in our building and which we currently have, works pretty well. And several teachers teach it currently. Mrs. Zumo is one of those teachers.
We also looked at a 0 hour after school, so it'd be the same amount of time if that would work for the teacher and the students. So it'd be the same, but it'd just be after school.
Next up is just a question about the schedule. What happens if the board ultimately rejects the 4x4 schedule?
If the board were to reject the 4x4 schedule, we go back to our rolling AB block schedule, which we currently have.
We've received several concerns about the attendance policy and how that might be impacted by COVID-19. What changes will be made to the attendance policy based on extended absences due to quarantine, isolation, and/or COVID-19 illness?
Each office will be very aware of situations with students if they were to become ill because of COVID-19 or illnesses related to that. And we will be very flexible to make sure that the attendance policy works for those students, that they have the help they need as they move forward with any type of remote learning that needs to occur. And we'll make sure that we're flexible and that they still have the opportunity to earn that credit no matter what situation they're in illness-wise.
A lot of parents are concerned about the activities or sports or athletics that their children are participating in, and this question is an example. Will the wrestling program still be available?
At this point in time, the answer is yes. The Wyoming High School Schools Association is the one that gives us guidance. They're the ones that are currently giving us the guidance of what PPE we need to have, different procedures that we need to put in place to have practices and games. So they will be the ones determining that. As with all activities, and as everybody knows, it really depends on what happens with the COVID. If we're still in school and we're still in Tier 1, there's a good chance.
Correct. That is correct.
There is a chance.
Next up is 4 questions, all related to the same idea. There's people are definitely looking for more information about in-person instruction versus remote instruction versus virtual instruction. The first of those questions is this: why don't the students that go to virtual schooling get to graduate from East?
Virtual school, the Cheyenne, Laramie County School District #1 virtual school is a separate school. And so if students enroll in that at this time, then all of their transcripts and everything is transferred there. And it's like any of the other 3 comprehensive schools, high schools, and also Triumph in our district. It's a separate school overall. And so that's why it would separate the student as far as graduating from the virtual school.
I understand that classes will be made available by video or recording of some type. If at any point students and parents become uncomfortable with attending classes in person daily, will they be granted the freedom to decrease the amount of time they attend in person and increase homebound work virtually video?
At this point in time, that would not be an option. That only would be an option for students that were quarantined or were ill. And what you're talking about is what we're going to have, we hope when the technology gets here, is what we call synchronous learning. So students will be able to Zoom into the class during class time and listen to the lecture and be part of the conversation of class. If it were a situation where that it felt that uncomfortable, then virtual school is an option at any point in time. Students can at any point in time go to virtual school. Students can return to any of the comprehensive high schools or Triumph that quarter.
My student is a rising freshman going into the IB program. Will remote education be offered for IB students?
This goes essentially to the previous question. As Ms. Bartlett said, students are either going to be, the remote option is for students who are quarantined or who are ill. If a freshman or sophomore decides they want to go to the virtual school and come back, maybe a semester, we certainly can have that conversation about, coming back in and enrolling in IB courses. But the remote option, as Ms. Bartlett said, really is for students who are ill or who are quarantined. It's not necessarily intended to be, even with the IB program, it's not intended to be a replacement for being in class. Juniors and seniors, because the full diploma program, or even if you're taking just a couple of IB classes for the certificate, juniors and seniors really need to be in class because that's where the curriculum is actually being delivered. There's not a virtual option for the juniors and seniors.
Any thoughts into just a few days in person and the rest online?
Well, right now, we're pretty fortunate in our state that we're able to enter school in Tier 1. And Tier 1 is contact every day with students in school. If we were to do an in-person and remote, this is the beauty about the 4x4 schedule. And that is, let's say that we start out the year in Tier 1, and then maybe there's spikes that occur or situations that happen in a building or throughout the district in certain areas. Going a few days in person and having a few days remote would be Tier 2. And with our 4x4 schedule, that change could be made overnight. So we're starting in Tier 1, which is, I think Mrs. Terrell said, having the kids face-to-face, there's no replacing that. But if we needed to go to Tier 2, especially in a 4x4 with 4 classes, it could be done immediately. And kids wouldn't miss a beat, neither would the teachers. And then it would help with student load as far as the number of classes they have, which would be 4. And it would help with the teacher's load, which would be 3 classes and anywhere from 80 to 90 to 100 kids, as opposed to 150, in some cases to 180.
That concludes all of the questions that were submitted in advance. And so we realized that many of you may have not had an opportunity to submit your question in advance, or maybe you received some information tonight that's triggered some additional questions. And so we want to open the floor to live questions. We just have a few ground rules to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to ask their question, and so that everyone has an opportunity to hear the answer. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We'll call on you on the order that you raise your hand, and when your name is called, you can go ahead and unmute and ask your question. And then we just ask that everyone's considerate of the other participants, because everybody is looking for information and has questions, and so we want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to ask those questions. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. Brandy, Go ahead.
I was just wondering, do seniors have a 0 hour in IB?
It depends on whether or not, it depends on the science course that they're enrolled in. Currently, the first year of of chemistry and biology have 0 hours associated with them. Some seniors take the first year of biology their junior year and then go ahead and take the first year of chemistry their senior year. So if they've got a 0 hour, or if they're taking chemistry their senior year and it's their first year of chemistry, they would have a 0 hour. If they're not taking a science class, then they wouldn't necessarily have a 0 hour class.
Okay. Thank you.
Brandy O'Brien, you're next.
I have actually a couple of questions. My first one is, what is East going to be doing to try and ensure safety between classes? The hallways are extremely crowded, and if all the students are released at the same time, I mean, that's just going to be a cesspool for transmission of a virus. So that would be my first question.
As far as passing periods, we're going to mandate that students wear masks in the hallway the entire time they're in the hallway. We're also going to ask that they keep moving, that there is no standing around and talking, but they keep moving to their next class. And it's also going to be important, and as a staff, we've already talked about this in a couple faculty meetings, that we have adults in the hallway monitoring the movement of the students. Number one, making sure students have their masks on, and number two, making sure they're not congregating in any place, having discussions or talking, which I know would be hard to believe for teenagers to want to be talking and hanging out, but we're going to try to do the best we can to curb that.
Okay, just one thing I'd like to request that the school considers is possibly staggering release times, so all the students aren't in the hallway at the same time, just because it is transmitted through the air, even though you're wearing a mask. With that many kids moving and everything, I just request that the district take that into consideration. But I guess my other question is, a lot of the people had concerns, about retaining math information or music info, that sort of thing. And it seemed like the response from the school to everything was, we'll just meet outside of this. We can meet after school or meet after that. And my concern is that this undoes the purpose of the 4x4 schedule. This is just looking at circumventing those safety measures that the school is looking at putting in place, and just looking at how to meet in person with more people. I would just ask the school consider offering virtual meetups as opposed to in-person meetups. I just really feel like everything that we've just heard today is just the school looking at how can we get around these safety measures that we're looking at putting in place. So thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Brandy Dayhill.
Brandy, you'll need to unmute.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. I was curious to find out how speech and debate would be both the class and also the traveling. I'm sure that it has changed dramatically from last year.
Hi, Brandy. I can speak to that. So far, it looks like, probably not going to have in-person speech and debate tournaments. Anybody who's been to one knows how crowded it can get, and the nature of the activity is to be, projecting. And so what I can tell you is I've been speaking with the president of our Speech and Debate Association in Wyoming, and we are planning a backup plan, essentially virtual string of tournaments throughout the year. There are some milestone tournaments that, we definitely plan to have, like the Wyoming State Tournament, which we were able to do virtual last year. Our national qualifying tournament we can do virtually, and it's just kind of a matter of getting people on board and scheduling it. But the rest of the nation is sort of planning to do that as well. So I would think that that's the basic idea. As for class, I basically would echo what Mr. Holroyd said about band, that we're going to be incredibly flexible with the 4x4. If that's one of the things that you're worried about, we're going to find all kinds of ways to let kids do it year long if they choose to. We also have a bunch of options that Mrs. Bartlett and Mr. Mirich are currently speaking to me about. But I'm going to be incredibly flexible too. I'm going to be offering all kinds of virtual practices throughout the week. So I'm going to be doing everything I can. My number one priority is to keep speech and debate alive and well and have the kids leave really excited this year. So if we can have a semi-normal season, we would be pretty lucky, I think. I don't know if that answers all your questions.
Yes, thank you very much.
You bet.
Next up is Paul Ricketts.
Thank you. I just had a quick question regarding elective courses that are typically just one semester in the regular block schedule. How will that work under the 4x4 schedule? Will they be limited on those types of electives, or will they be as quarters or something?
Those electives will be one quarter. For example, health, you might take quarter one, and then PE, you would take quarter two, or there's a multitude of semester courses, but they would become one quarter courses.
Thank you, Paul. Next up, we have Randy.
I think this is me again, but I was just going to kind of piggyback off of what Mr. Ricketts had just asked, because my daughter still has her PE credit that she has to get before she graduates. And so she was going to take that one of the semesters her senior year to get it out of the way. So either way, it would just be like a quarter-long class at this point just for the PE portion. Or are you guys even offering PE?
Yes, we are offering PE, and it would just be a quarter.
Okay. And for the 4x4, just one more question, I'm sorry. For the 4x4, so they would have a mix for the 4x4. It wouldn't be just like 4 core classes in the fall and then 4 core class, or, you know, or their electives in the spring. It would be a mix of both for the whole year, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
We wouldn't put all 4 cores in one semester. In fact, we had already ran a preliminary to see who had all 4 cores in one. We were already going to look at that. So we will do our best. I don't know if we'll exactly get a balance 2 and 2. That would be the dream. I just don't know if we're going to have time and manpower to get that done, but we definitely will make sure that all 4 cores are in one semester.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
The person that identified themselves as L, you're up.
So I'm actually pretty excited about the 4x4 because it works for me. But either way, I see myself needing to come in and make schedule changes to both my kids' schedules. How would we go about that?
Well, first of all, if this gets approved on Tuesday, we're going to have to do some work on the master schedule and get classes moved around, and some of the things that teachers have been talking about. We have to get that in the master schedule. Then we're going to unload and reload those student requests. So it's going to look different than it does right now. In addition to that, we are going to have a form that will go live probably around 17th. And that form will be just like you'll put in there, I want a schedule change, I want to change this class to this class. And so that'll be done electronically.
Okay, and on a more specific note, the 4x4 would actually benefit my child since he's only going to be there one semester. So even if I submit the form, can I still come and talk to somebody? Or is that how that works? Or
yeah, if you're talking about having your student graduate early, definitely we would want you to come in and talk to the counselor just so we can make sure everything's set. That will be a possibility, and that would be made by appointment. And so I would suggest you wait though till after we find out whether we're going to the 4x4, and then call your office and they'll set up an appointment for you to meet with your counselor.
The form really is just to help us keep track of the large number of schedule changes and to help us process those as efficiently and effectively as we can. But certainly we'd love to see or hear from any of you. And so if you have specific concerns that you'd like to either speak to us about over the phone or in person, we definitely welcome you to either call or come in.
And right now, since we don't have a hand up, I would like to ask Mr. Zane Jacobson, who's a veteran of the IB program, and we want to make sure he's still awake in his office, to kind of give maybe an overview of your thoughts of a possible 4x4 and how would it impact the IB students as you move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Marich. You know, it's something that I've only really been in conversation with over the last couple of days, both with teachers and with students. And every conversation that I'm engaged in, we come up with problems that we're going to have to work through, but we also are coming up with benefits to the 4x4 schedule. I think that you really can look at that. An advantage of this is it will provide students a better focus on those courses that they're currently involved in. It can really be tricky for students to balance, especially if we're looking at a junior or senior that's in 6 IB classes at one time, to balance 6 classes. And if they're involved in theory of knowledge, it could be 7 classes. And so splitting those up and putting some on the back burner and really getting to focus on 2 select classes one semester, and then you know, getting through that material, and as Ms. Zumo said, they're really learning it to understand it, not learning it to memorize it. And that type of learning doesn't disappear over a couple months, especially if teachers, you know, continue to throw kids those, you know, things to do to keep them on top of things. You know, and other advantages of that, of the 4x4 that we're seeing and having some of the conversations with some of the students, is that they may have started some programs a little late in their high school career and found something that they're really passionate about. Now they may have an opportunity to kind of make up some ground. So for example, students started doing better in math, and now they have a chance to essentially take 2 years of math in one year, or got a little late into the welding program, and they were a junior in welding 2. They weren't sure if they'd get through that fourth level. They'll have an opportunity to take 2 years of welding in 1 year. So you know, it's interesting. Every conversation that we have, teachers and students, sure, we run into roadblocks, but we also are seeing a lot of opportunities arise through this 4x4 that we may not really have considered in the past. But you know, one thing that I'm confident in is, you know, the students and the teachers that are passionate about these challenging tasks. It's pretty neat to see them work through some of these challenges and turn some tricky situations into some positive outcomes. So I've only had a few conversations about some of these difficulties, but also about some of the benefits, and I'm sure those are going to continue to come up, and I look forward to hearing some of the things that other students and teachers and parents have thought about, both what we can have to work through, but also the benefits to this proposed schedule. Without a doubt, if it's something that's gonna assist us with being in the building, it's a sacrifice we're really willing to take on in order to be in the building. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Jacobson.
Looks like we have a couple of questions. Tara Burnside, go ahead.
Yes, I'm wondering, how is lunch going to work?
Great question. Right now, what our plan has is that we have 3 separate locations. We will have the cafeteria, the lobby, and the auxiliary gym set up for lunch. The seats it'll be socially distanced, so we'll make sure that we have kids appropriately distanced from one another. We also have the courtyard if students want to eat out there. So that's the general what we're doing. They'll be assigned to certain areas for lunch. And so that's do you have any more specific questions, or does that answer it?
Nope, that answers my question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chris, you had a question, go ahead.
Hi, I'm sorry I was late to the meeting, so if this has been answered already, you can tell me that and I'll go back and rewatch it. But I had a couple questions. One about AP classes. Previously, they had said that AP classes would have to take a tutorial to kind of brush up on that on second semester. And I was wondering if there was an option for that to be like in T-Bird time or before after school or online or something, so the kids don't have to give up an elective to do that.
Ms. Terrell, do you want to do a summary to answer that, or would you like me to?
I can do it if you want.
Perfect, thank you.
The answer is yes, we are definitely looking into the options of, using extended day after school, maybe creating a 0-hour after school second semester. We always have study nights for all of the AP and IB math classes, and many of the other content areas do, 2 hours in the evenings during the spring to make sure that students are preparing. And AP specifically last spring, they made review sessions. They asked their master teachers, their AP exam graders to put together review sessions. So they will keep those online this spring. So that's another option for your students who have review sessions.
Perfect, thank you. And then I had another question. My daughter's a junior, so she's currently in Spanish 4 and looking into the option of doubling up on Spanish next year to kind of keep that foreign language current. So if we're starting to do that, what kind of options, or like the healthcare, she could finish that out next year, like what she was going to do her senior year. So what kind of options then would there be for them coming into their senior year for those types of classes that they might finish this year if they double up? Or would she just have to do something else?
I might be able to help with that. We're very fortunate that, we have hundreds and hundreds of classes available here at East, but we have really expanded with what we can provide students through LCCC. And so for students that are finishing early and finishing a number of their classes early and taking advantage of LCCC classes. We will do all we can to try to find things here at East that are meaningful, but looking at other resources like LCCC to help with that.
Yeah, that's great. I just want to make sure that she wouldn't just end up then an off year of no foreign language or the healthcare, if that's something that she did. So that's great. And I just wanted to tell you guys thank you for just opening up and being so open through this whole thing and having all these meetings, because it's really eased my mind a lot about the upcoming year. So I appreciate you guys taking your time and doing this for everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Elle, did you have another question?
I do. Are you guys checking out lockers?
Yes, what we're going to do is, what we found out during the shutdown is when we shut down and we had an opportunity to clean out the lockers here, we found out about 50% of the lockers were empty. So what we're going to do this year is let kids enter school and see what their situation is as far as wanting a locker. And then if they feel like they need a locker, then where in the building would be the best place for them to have their locker. And then we would try to spread out where the students are with their lockers so we don't run into any log jams in the hallways. So to answer your question, yes, we will.
And then my second question is, I'm trying to phrase this properly. If a student needs a quarter, just one quarter, which would be like a semester of an elective, is there a way we can look and see what's available before we request a meeting for the counselors?
Yes, those would be located in the bulletins we had last spring. But if you needed to come in to look and find out what is available, do we have those on the website? Or the bulletins on our website? The bulletins are also on our website. Is that right, Mr. Jacobson?
Yes, that is correct. And, this is something that does come up from time to time with students of trying to find something to match a one semester class. And in this case, it'll be a 1 quarter class. A lot of times this conversation starts with a student emailing us or dropping by our office and just saying, hey, I'm looking for a 1 semester class during this class period. And oftentimes the counselor starts looking into things and get back to the student, give them some offers, some options of what might work, and then gives the student a chance to think about it, maybe talk to the teacher, and then select a class that way. That's something that's pretty common that we work with. It's just 1 quarter instead of a 1 semester scenario.
Thank you.
Diane Roberts, go ahead.
I was wondering how the students are going to keep up with their college credits if we're just going to do our classes by semester instead of all year.
I'm finding that most of the AP math teachers and some of the IB math teachers actually prefer to have their classes for a semester because we'll have 30 more hours of instruction time. And what we typically do every single year for AP and IB math exams is we have study nights in the spring, 2 hours in the evening, once a week. So that would be a way to keep current. We've talked about setting up maybe extended day or a 0 hour where your teacher will be in there. You can come in, they'll have a review ready to go to help you keep fresh on those skills. The College Board puts out review videos or did put out review videos. They asked their master teachers who are AP graders to put those together. They will keep those up there. And definitely EHS time could be used as well. Some classes do have tutorials and they would use that tutorial time second semester to work towards the AP exam, keep things fresh.
Okay, thank you.
If you're asking about the actual credits, you're still going to earn the same number of college credits. So Ms. Terrell had talked earlier about they get college credit for the calculus. You still get that credit from the college. It's just done in a semester instead of over the year.
Are there any more questions this evening for our panelists? All right, well, I'd like to thank everybody who joined in this morning and participated in the roundtable with our teachers. Number one, I'd like to thank our teachers for taking their time to be here this evening and answer your questions. And then I want to thank everybody in the East High School community who has really participated in these conversations and given input and feedback and asked great questions throughout. One thing about the East High School community, I always appreciate everybody's respect for one another and willingness to work together. We have one more hand up, Mr. Kirchner.
Serena Collins, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. I'm new to this whole Zoom thing. I do have a question. I do have a senior this year, so it's better for her to go to study in the classroom. And my second question is, she is graduating early.
What was your, I'm sorry, I didn't understand your first question. Could you please repeat that?
I have a senior this year. Is it better for her to do it online or to go to the East be in classroom?
Well, what I would tell you is it would probably be a good situation if you'd contact the counselor in your student's office and sit down and have a discussion with them or talk to them about the class situation once we get our semester schedule put in place here. And also because the credits that are needed for graduation and how that can be done, and if it could be done easier here in our building or through virtual school or some form of a combination. But I would definitely contact the counselor in your student's office and have that discussion.
And when is a good time to do that?
Ma'am, you can call the school anytime to set up a meeting. Call your student's office to set up that meeting. Yes, ma'am.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right.
So I want to thank everybody again for being with us this evening and wish everybody a great weekend. Thank you.